Think about the last time someone genuinely wronged you. Maybe they lied. Maybe they stole something. Maybe they betrayed you in a way that still stings when you think about it. And somewhere in the back of your mind, even if you never acted on it, even if you're a perfectly reasonable person, you thought about it, what it would feel like to make it right, to make them feel what you felt. That feeling is not modern. It is not a product of stress, social media, or a complicated world. It is one of the oldest impulses in human history. And for ancient humans, it wasn't just a feeling they sat with quietly, it was something they acted on, systematically, deliberately, with rules. Because here's what most people don't realize about ancient revenge. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't random violence or uncontrolled rage. In almost every ancient culture ever studied, revenge was a structured institution. It had rules, boundaries, timelines, and community oversight. It was, in many ways, the first justice system humanity ever developed. But it didn't start as a system. It started as a feeling burning in the chest of a single prehistoric human standing over something that had just been taken from them. The starting point is something researchers call the reciprocity principle. Humans are wired at a deep neurological level to expect balance. When someone gives you something, you feel compelled to give back. When someone takes something from you, you feel compelled to take back. This isn't learned behavior. Studies on infants as young as 6 months show they already respond to fairness and unfairness with measurable emotional reactions. The sense that wrong must be answered is not cultural, it is biological. Ancient humans didn't choose to feel it. They were built that way. But feeling the impulse and acting on it effectively are two different things. Picture a small, ancient community. 20, maybe 30 people huddled around fires at night, depending completely on each other to survive the next winter. Now, picture one of them waking up to find their stored food gone, taken. The rage is instant, and so is the danger. Because if that person kills the thief, they might have just eliminated a hunter the group desperately needs. If they injure someone in retaliation, they might create a wound that splits the group in half just as winter arrives. Uncontrolled revenge didn't just threaten the offender, it threatened everyone. So ancient humans developed something remarkable: proportional revenge. The concept is simple, but it took thousands of years to refine. The response must match the offense, not exceed it, not fall short of it. Match it. You take one thing, I take one thing back. You injure me, I injure you to the same degree, no more. The moment a response exceeds the original offense, the injured party becomes the aggressor, and a new cycle begins, one that could tear the community apart. Ancient communities across the world, with no contact with each other, independently arrived at this principle because it was the only version of revenge that didn't destroy the group. The most famous codification of this idea appears in the Code of Hammurabi, written around 1754 BCE in ancient Babylon. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. These lines are often quoted today as proof of ancient brutality. They were actually the opposite. They were a limit, a ceiling. You can take exactly this much and not 1 inch more. The law wasn't permission to be cruel, it was protection against cruelty, spiraling beyond what the original offense justified. But that written law came thousands of years after the principle was already alive in human communities, enforced not by kings or courts, but by something far more immediate: fear. Because ancient humans discovered something even more powerful than revenge itself: the fear of becoming the next target. In a small ancient community, there were no strangers, no anonymity, no way to commit an offense and disappear into a crowd. If someone wronged you and your response was wildly disproportionate, if a stolen piece of meat was answered by burning down everything they owned, the entire community witnessed it, and the community remembered. Social reputation in the ancient world wasn't just important, it was survival itself. A person known for uncontrolled retaliation was a threat to everyone. They made the group unstable, and an unstable group didn't survive winter, didn't coordinate hunts, didn't protect its children from predators. Ancient communities couldn't afford people who couldn't control their revenge, so the group learned to control it for them. The most common mechanism was the community mediator. In virtually every ancient society ever studied, from the Aboriginal communities of Australia, to the tribal structures of ancient Africa, to the earliest village councils of Mesopotamia, there existed some version of a neutral figure whose role was to stand between two angry people and ensure the response stayed proportional. They had no army, no prison. Their power came from something simpler and, in a small community, far more effective: the collective willingness of everyone else to enforce their decision. If the mediator ruled that someone had gone too far, the community could simply withdraw, stop sharing food, refuse to hunt beside them, leave them unprotected when the fire burned low at night. In a world where survival depended entirely on the group, being cut off from it was a punishment more terrifying than almost anything else. But not every wrong could be settled by a mediator around a fire. Some wounds went deeper. Some offenses stopped being personal and became something else entirely. Sometimes one stolen animal, one murdered son, one broken agreement, generations old, quietly violated, could divide two entire clans. Not for a season, not for a year, for generations. This was the blood feud. A blood feud wasn't chaos either. It was a formal understanding between two families or clans that an offense was serious enough to demand a response from the entire group, not just the individual who committed it. And even here, there were rules. Specific people were legitimate targets. Others were untouchable. Children, and in many cultures, women and elders, were explicitly protected, no matter how far the feud escalated. The conflict continued until both sides agreed, through negotiation, the death of a specific individual, or payment of goods or animals. That balance had finally been restored. The Icelandic sagas, written down centuries later but describing much older traditions, are filled with blood feuds governed by these principles. The Pashtunwali code, still practiced today in parts of Afghanistan and Pakistan, preserves a version of this system that has operated for over 2,000 years. The Cherokee blood law, documented by early European settlers in North America, followed remarkably similar logic despite developing on the opposite side of the world. Different continents, different centuries, different languages, the same structure. Because it worked. Not gently, not without cost, but well enough to hold together communities that had no other way to enforce order. Here's the part that should stay with you long after this video ends. Every legal system on Earth today, every court, every judge, every sentencing guideline, is built on the same foundation ancient humans laid while sitting around fires, trying to stop one stolen piece of meat from tearing their community apart. We didn't invent justice. We inherited it, refined it, wrote it down, built institutions around it. But the instinct beneath every courtroom is the same instinct that once made a furious prehistoric human pause before striking back and ask, is this too much? Will this make things better? Or make everything worse? Long before courts, long before prisons, long before a single law was written, one human being stood before another, angry enough to destroy them completely, and chose not to. That choice, repeated quietly across hundreds of thousands of nights around countless fires, may have been the first real step towards civilization. We are still living inside the decision they made.